Hi there guys, so in this video what we're going to be doing is making a depinging device for our Daystate Redwolf. Now this is obviously a non-standard Redwolf. We've made a fully custom stock for it and also converted the standard bottle gun over to a cylinder. This rifle uses the cylinder and the front block from our Daystate Renegade. We've fit that onto our Redwolf and codenamed it the Shedwolf. The actual conversion itself works absolutely beautiful on this rifle. The only problem that we have with it is the excessive amounts of valve ping. What I'll do is I'll play a little bit of audio from the rifle being shot, and from that you should be able to hear the valve ping. And we're going to get rid of that by fitting a little Delrin baffle in the cylinder to help remove the shockwave that travels up the cylinder when the rifle's fired. I'll explain a little more on how the depinger works when we actually build it. But before that, what we'll do is we'll strip the rifle down, I'll take some measurements from the cylinder, and I'll take you over to the lathe and we'll start making the depinger. Right then, now that we've got the cylinder off, I can explain a little of what we need to do. So what we basically need to do is create a device that fits in the end here, or in the very end of the shroud, that baffles the sound wave or pressure wave that comes from when the valve is opened by the hammer. So the hammer and the valve are in this area here, and when the hammer hits the valve, it opens it, allowing air obviously to pass through the barrel and push the pellet up, but it also creates a shock wave that travels through the cylinder. Now the cylinder is obviously a hollow tube, so that can pick up some of the ring. Don't know how well the camera will pick that up, but there's a certain ring to the tube as you tap it. What I've done is just went into CAD and drew up a little diagram of what I'm going to be making here. So it will go around this direction in the rifle, and as you can see there, it's fairly simple. What we basically have is this section here will be fit in the cylinder with an O-ring in this groove here that will seal on the inside of the cylinder. This top hat section here will fit in this boss here and space the depinger out a little from the cylinder so that the top hat, or the large diameter of the depinger, is somewhere around here roughly. We have a hole going up the centre in this part here. It doesn't go all the way through though. That is broken through with a 1mm hole in this end. So in this end there's a small 1mm hole, and that will help baffle the pressure wave. We also have a 3mm hole in the side here, and that just allows air all around the device so there's no spots that pressure can build up or get trapped in. We're going to be making it out of Delrin. Delrin should be good enough for this. We've got nice thick walls everywhere, so it shouldn't break up or anything like that. With that all said and done, we'll get you over to the lathe and I'll show you the making of it. And here we are over at the lathe. So we just got a piece of Delrin in the chuck there. The first thing we're going to be doing is turning a 20mm spigot on one end so that we can hold it easier in both the lathe and the mill. Once that's done, we can flip the part so that we're holding it by the spigot we just turned, and we can start work on the external features. First thing we're going to be doing is turning the OD down to 31.75mm, and that will just give us a little bit of clearance inside the cylinder. So the cylinder measurement we took earlier was 32.25, or roughly, so we've got about 0.5mm clearance between the Delrin and the cylinder walls itself. I didn't want the Delrin to be touching the cylinder walls itself, as I was a little worried about some more resonance being introduced into the rifle, so we gave it a good amount of clearance. And once that section's done, we can turn our attention down to the turn down portion. We're going to be turning this down to 17mm. And although the dimensions of this drawing aren't critical, it's always good practice to try and keep to the dimensions as best as possible. And once we've turned that down, we can drill out the centre, and that's just using a 10mm drill bit. Chamfer the hole, and then turn our attention over to the groove for the O-ring. I want this O-ring to be fairly tight in the cylinder, so what I'm going to be doing is turning it down to a nominal size first, then putting an O-ring on it and test fitting it within the cylinder. Unfortunately, I did miss drilling the hole in the side. I did forget to press record on the camera, but you really didn't miss out on much. It's just a 3mm hole in the side of the device, and just quickly off camera I fitted an O-ring, and we also test fit the O-ring in the cylinder to make sure that fit nicely, which it did. So the last thing to do was to turn off the spigot, then drill a 1mm hole to break through into the 10mm hole we drilled earlier. But that was that. So I'll take you back over to the bench, we'll get it fitted and we'll give it a test. Right then, so here is the device all fully made. As I said before, a fairly simple thing. We have a 1mm hole in this end. We have a 3mm hole just in the side there. We also have the bore in here, a 10mm hole just with a drill bit. So when fitted in the rifle, this end will go in here like so, and then the larger end will seal on the inside of the cylinder. And hopefully, if all goes to plan, the installation of the depinger will take out some of the resonance that occurs when we fire the rifle, so we shouldn't hear that ping as we fire the rifle. There's only one way to find out though, so let's put it together. This just fits in the end here. I have seen some other depingers with sort of a Brillo pad or a fine mesh in front of the depinger, and that's supposed to take out a little more of the resonance, but I'm pretty sure this is going to take out most of it. We probably will still hear a little bit of ping, but it'll be a lot better than it was. Right there guys, so it's been a couple of days now since I've fitted the depinging device in the rifle, and I'm more than happy with how it's turned out. We took the rifle to the range on Saturday, had a full day of testing, and I can safely say that we've cured our ringing problem. Now, I will just say that the ring hasn't gone entirely. There still is a very small amount of ring. You can't hear it if you just fire the rifle normally, but if you put your ear to the stock and fire the rifle, you still do get a very short ring, but I'm really not going to be worrying too much about that. We could do other things. We may be able to insulate the action from the stock, maybe put some little rubber vibration absorption pads between the stock and the rifle itself, and that may cure that problem, but I'm really not going to worry about it too much. Now, the device that we used in our rifle, we obviously made on a lathe, but if you didn't have access to a lathe, there is a number of things you can still do to try and remove some of the ring in your rifle. But the most common ones seem to be a sort of brush or a tight fitting brush in the cylinder itself. They look something like this. Although obviously much larger, they need to be a good fit in the cylinder itself, and preferably all out of nylon or something similar, but they can be found at any hardware store. The other option that's quite common is to use thin wall PVC tubing, slit it down the middle and then roll it in on itself, and then pack that within the cylinder. That's another very common depinging device, and both of those options are obviously fairly cheap. DIY options that you can try, and if they make no difference or they make it worse even, you can just take them out. The main goal of the depinger is to stop the pressure wave or shock wave from travelling up the cylinder when the rifle's fired. So anything that you can do to baffle that wave, whether it be a depinger like we did, or a nylon brush or PVC tubing, any of those things, they can make a big difference. The other thing to keep in mind, as I said before, is insulation between the stock and the action itself. But with that all being said, that's going to about do it for this one guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.